Hello all, welcome to part 2 of the router hacking video series. So in this video, we will look at how to go ahead and conduct an Nmap scan on a router and try and find interesting services which you might be able to exploit in later videos. So what we've done is we've set up Viata in a VMware virtual machine, and it's already up and running, and I would request you to go ahead and look at the Viata basics video. There's a link on this page if you're not familiar with how to go ahead, boot the Viata router and configure it for an IP address. So as we can clearly see, the Viata router is booted and it has received an IP address of 121.252. Now let's go ahead to our backtrack instance. So basically now what we'll do is go ahead, make sure we can ping the router. So it's up and running, and at the very same time we have a connection to the router from here. So now we'll run an Nmap with a simple SYN scan, and let's see what we get. Okay, so it's done, and we can see that there are a couple of interesting services here: SSH, Telnet, HTTP, BGP, HTTPS, and there's one interesting service which says SNet sensor management or something like that. The interesting one is BGP, which of course, on a router there has to be a BGP server which is running, especially if it's an edge router on the autonomous system. So this is interesting. Now let's go ahead, try and dig deeper by running the service fingerprinting as well as OS guessing scan. So, okay, so here's the output. Let's go up. So now Nmap shows us the service as well as the version. So this is OpenSSH, Debian version. Then we have Telnet. There's also interestingly an HTTP proxy which is running there. And what Nmap has also found is that this is an open proxy, which actually means this could be abused, and spammers or other malicious hackers could use these proxies and chain many such proxies and go ahead and attack servers using us as staging points. Okay, another interesting service. Also, there's a web server running on light HTTPD. That's an interesting piece of information. And also on port 10,000, we find a squid proxy server. Nice. So there's also an unknown service fingerprint. This is actually port 23, which is Telnet. So I guess for whatever reason, Nmap wasn't able to decipher that the service running on port 23 was Telnet, which we'll see just in a couple of minutes. So this is a fingerprint it is generated, which we could submit to insecure.org and let them know that this is nothing but Viata's Telnet login. The service info says the OS is Linux, but there weren't any exact matches. Anyway, so there's a lot of information here which we got through an Nmap scan. So now let's try and connect to port 23 and see what is there. Okay, so before we do that, the thing which I want to point out here is a router is also nothing but a network device which has a network stack, and thus is going to respond to all the probes which we use, by using a network scanner such as Nmap. So basically, using this information, we are able to fingerprint and find out the various services which are running on the router. Okay, so let's continue and now connect to port 23 and see what's there. So it says welcome to Viata and Viata login. So at this point, we can try a very simple attack, and that is, let's say if this is a router which has just been put up, or let's say the administrator of the router isn't very knowledgeable, then he might have gone and left a couple of default accounts and default username passwords still enabled on it. So we could just try something simple as admin and then the password as password. That didn't work. So let's go ahead and do a quick query for Viata router default password, right? This might give us some information about the default password. So we've already done the search, and we have a couple of search results. Let me enlarge the font a little bit so that you can see what's there. So as you can see, there are basically two default accounts with Viata as the password. One is Viata to access the routing platform, and the other is root to access the Linux system. Interesting. So now let's go back and check if this router is vulnerable to the default account password attack. So username and password is same, and voila, we are in. So as we can see, for a router which is working still out of the box and the default accounts and the passwords are still enabled, it is very trivial to break into such a device. Now what you might be amazed is that there might be tons of such devices out there which have been misconfigured to use out of the box settings. Once we are into the router box, we can run the show configuration command to get more information about the various interfaces and then the kind of services running, and even probably get a dump of the root password and other things. Okay, so that's all for this video. The takeaway is that a router is a network device which can also be scanned by Nmap and other network scanning utilities, and it is also going to have many of the familiar services such as Telnet, SSH, HTTP, etc. enabled, and these might be vulnerable to various attacks. And also, at times the administrator might not have turned off the default accounts, or also might not have changed the default passwords. And in this video, we found such a router and went ahead and exploited it. Okay, so that's all in this video. In the next video, we'll try and look at how to brute force a router password using Hydra. Thank you.